Hey there, so today we're going to be doing a lovely little project, a bit of word art, and we're going to be putting these simple summer wildflowers that we did in a previous episode. You can get it just there if you want to look back, and we're going to put it all together and spell something out with flowers. So get your kit and let's get started. Right, we're going to do some word art, which is very cool. So I'm going to start off by doing a very quick guide. It's quite a loose guide today to doing some lettering. You just want to get yourself a set square because I think they are the absolute best. So I'm going to draw myself a word, and let's see. I'm going to draw bloom, so B-L-O-O-M. We've got 5 letters, so let's make each letter 2.5. with a little gap in between. So and yeah, B-L-O-O-M. That's going to look nice on the page. So I'm going to draw this up, and I'm going to just give you a little guide for the first ones, and then I'm not going to bore you by doing it all in front of you, but I like to give myself just a little bit of guidance, and then sort of just to go off on my own a bit with it. So if it feels like that's a bit too wide a letter, then in that case, yeah, that feels like we gave ourselves too much space. I'm going to do a sort of serif-y font. So when you are doing these kinds of fonts, yeah, I think we'll just go in a bit closer, do it like this. When you're doing a serif kind of font, essentially all you're doing is you still just create the word you want very simply, and then you can just add little kick lines and stuff on the end. So it's looking more like the letters are all about 2.2 centimeters wide. That's kind of nice. Now O's are a little bit tricky. You could use a compass, but then you get sort of full-on circles, and we don't always want that. So I just say go slow and use the guidelines, because they are there to help you, and just measure some things. That's pretty nice. And I just keep on measuring sort of how wide my letters are. Yeah, they're still looking like they're just shy of 2.5. So find the centre, find the top and bottom, and curve out. These get much easier as you do more of them. I still don't think I'm particularly amazing at them, but I'm getting better. So that's something for me to practice as well. And then an M. I can never quite remember sort of which bits should be thin and which bits should be thick on an M. So this letter is going to be just a little bit broader, isn't it? Because they always seem to be. Let's make it sort of about there. Yeah, bloom. And we'll have our midpoint just a little bit lower. So that's the thick one. It always looks a bit weird when I do it, but it's okay. Sort of do a... I might come back to that M. I don't think that's particularly wonderful. We'll bring that up a bit. Anyways, we've got a nice bloom there, and what we're going to do is we're now, weirdly, going to rub out most of it. We don't want to see too much of it. And that is all so that we can paint some lovely wildflowers all over it. And this is going to be a really nice step on from the tutorial I did with you guys just gone, where we did simple summer wildflowers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint a load of flowers in and amongst this lettering. And then at the end, we're going to come back and we're going to paint in the lettering. So first off, I had some really nice poppies, some field poppies, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some, and some are going to come in front of the lettering, some are going to come behind, and then some are just going to kind of weave their way in amongst the lettering. So if you haven't watched the simple summer wildflowers, I highly recommend you go and have a little watch, and then you can come and play basically. So this one is all about play, but of course I will talk you through what I'm doing as I go. So I'm using my size 2 brush on all of this, and it's a wonderfully versatile brush, rounded point as always. And I'm painting my flowers a little bit smaller than how I painted them in the tutorial, but they're still sort of quite large and kind of larger than life and fun. So we painted in the other session, I've got them just here actually, we painted the field poppy. We've also got a red campion, so let's pop some of that one in as well. And I just like to sort of work my way from right to left. Being a left-hander, it's kind of important to do that. And I'm just always thinking about where my plants are going to sit and how it's going to affect the sort of readability of my lettering. So I don't want to sort of completely disrupt the lettering, but I want to have a sort of playful bit of sort of intertwining, and also intertwining with the other flowers that I've got in here as well. So red campion, we actually have quite a lot of the red in the stem itself, and then some lovely little sort of budding seed heads. Because I think it's really important when you are learning a new skill like watercolour to have as much time spent actually putting those new skills into play and creating something really pretty. Okay, so we're going to have an open face flower. Done with sort of these double-headed petals, and then capturing it all in a circle. And then our smaller ones here, just partially opening from the side, lovely and pretty. Really nice, and we can still sort of see our bloom just down below. Okay, so we also had the rose hip featured in my previous tutorial, so we're going to pop in a few of those because it's nice to have some slightly more sort of open flowers going on as well. So I'm going to start with the yellow centre, and then this rose hip flower is just going to sort of come down over the front of my slightly weird M. But it's going to go behind the O. So at this point we need to just be careful that we don't paint over the O there. But we would see a tiny bit of that petal poking out on the other side. Then I'm actually going to start to use a slightly smaller brush because we're going to be getting a little bit more sort of intertwined, I think, now. So let's have a few leaves. And then the rosehip berries, which are so lovely, are going to spray out of the O with a little leaf. What I really love about watercolour is I paint both very detailed kind of studies and also really, really loose ones like this, and I get so much joy out of both of them. But I think the joy comes because I have a go at both, and I sort of appreciate the amount of work it takes to do a really sort of detailed study, as well as the fun that can be had with doing something a bit looser like this. And the other thing is, I imagine a lot of you would probably put these newfound skills into maybe a bit of card making, a bit of, yeah, like sending nice sort of notes and things to friends, and I think the joy can be lost a bit if you're slaving over a piece that's taking you days to finish. So it's just kind of cool that we can paint something that's just a little bit fun and playful. Okay, so now we're going to have some cornflower poking in, because we've got an awful lot of red going on, haven't we? And we need something to break that all up. So I'm using a slightly different colour for my leaves, and that's just poking out behind. And that's going to tuck in behind as well. The good thing is, every time that you start painting something that sort of is interacting with one of the letters and you're painting up against the side of it, you're helping to define the edge of that piece, of that letter. So we're going to have 2 open-faced cornflowers. So it's a little bit like the red campion, but just a little bit more delicate, I suppose, and smaller petals, so they pack more in. Now you could do a second layer of these, or you could just leave it at that, which is kind of fun. And then I'm going to do a side on one of this. Now we've also learnt a few other flowers other than the ones I just did in the session the other day, so I'm going to add in a daisy or two. I think that would be kind of fun. And that one's going to come over the top. So I'm going to pop in a lovely cheerful daisy just on the side here. So over it comes. Just little flecks up the stem. And I'm going to pencil in the centre, just so I know where it is. And now we know about daisies. We need a pale, pale colour that's going to be our white petals, which always looks very sort of sludgy and dirty when you first paint it in, and then it all becomes clear. Now we've painted a sort of wild daisy that's quite small. The petals are really thin and dainty, and the centre is quite big. This is a bit more of a sort of blousy daisy. Bit more like a sort of black-eyed Susan or eucalyptus style. It's big oxeye daisy, so we're going to just allow that to dry, and this is taking shape really nicely. Okay, so I've also got some honeysuckle. That's what we also had in our session the other day in the previous episode. Here it is. So we're going to paint some of those in. Now let's see, I think that would be coming over and under and over again. That would be quite fun. Honeysuckle is a winding vine anyway, isn't it? And we'll have one at the bottom. So these are little sort of crowns that we make with these lovely looped petals in the permanent rose. And then some sort of amber for the more open trumpets. And we're going to pop in another. Let's have it sort of winding off the vine and coming up this way. I must say I've really enjoyed creating these YouTube tutorials for you guys. It was something we started as a way to sort of reach out to more people when my sort of traditional workshops were unable to happen because of COVID. So it's just been so lovely, because I was a bit nervous starting. I wasn't sure if there was room for another watercolour artist on YouTube, but the lovely thing is it's a very friendly atmosphere. So I just want to say thank you guys, because you've welcomed me in so warmly, and I really appreciate it, because I know that I need to make sure that I'm creating the kind of content that will keep you all interested, quite frankly, because there's plenty to choose from. So yeah, I love you guys, thank you. Okay, here's another poppy. And then a little bit of black, just a dab. You don't need too much. And let's have another daisy, I think. So you can see at this point I can just sort of keep working my way across, seeing what I want to place into this painting. But just remembering sort of the letters are important and shouldn't be forgotten about. I still like having the pencil guides for certain flowers, like when you're doing a daisy with petals, anchoring that circle in the middle. So please don't worry if you still want to go quite cautiously with it, because I'm that kind of person too, really. The looseness comes with confidence, the looseness of the watercolour, and so the more you do, the more you will feel like you can just throw caution to the wind and just paint whatever you want. It'll happen, I promise. So it feels like I'm mainly using my size 2/10 and size 2, which is quite cool. Not having to sort of use tons of different brushes all the time. We've got a bit of a gap in here. We're going to add in some leaves on our honeysuckle. In fact, I'm just going to move some of these other brushes off because we don't need them now. So these little leaves are great. It's a bit like when we paint a wreath. You put in your focal flowers and then you're like, right, I need to sort of even up some space here. So that's when leaves really come into their own. Lovely. Okay, we are getting there. And you see there, I could just use the paint that was already on the page and just using the wetness of it to help it travel, to do a little bit of cornflower. Now I appreciate the scale is not quite accurate for all these flowers. I know they don't quite exist together like this, but I think that's the fun of doing a little bit of word art, is it's more about just expressing yourself, isn't it? Okay, so I'm just gonna finish off to the end of here on our first layers, and then we're gonna go back and add in a bit more detail and then do the outline of the letters. So this is looking nice and dry now, so I'm gonna go back in for some detail and second layer bits. So we need to fill in the centers of our daisies. I'm just gonna do single layers of petals on these daisies. Keep them a bit more sort of cartoonish. And then it's just a little bit of detail on a few other things actually. Bit of yellow on the rose hips, just in the middle, because it's really sort of blended out almost so that the yellow is unrecognisable now. I can barely see it. And a little bit of green in the middle of all of that. Really nice. Maybe just a dab of green in those daisies as well. Do like to do a little bit of pink in the middle of the red campions. And then picking out just a little bit of detail. Not too much, but it just helps things pop off the page a bit, I think. And then the centre of the cornflower needs the little fronds. Okay, we're looking good. So the next stage is to be adding in our lettering. And first off, I'm just going to add in like a tiny bit of shadow on the leaves and things that are just sort of poking out from behind it. That's my first port of call. I'm just looking around. There we go, there's one. Which just helps define those edges of the letters a bit more. And also just gives the plant life a little bit more of an interest. Trouble is, when I start on detail, you can't stop me. Okay, so the next stage is we are going to start to actually do an outline of the lettering, and I can finally work out what on earth I'm going to do with that M. So I find that you could use any number of really small brushes for the outline, but actually what I find is better is having a brush bristle that's a bit longer than, say, something like that. So I'm going to at least begin with a 2/10 brush to do my outline. Now, what outline colour do I go for? Well, I think some kind of sort of dark teal colour would work quite nicely because it's still sort of bluey green, but it'll stand out. So I need plenty of it. So I'm going to get a bit of French ultramarine, and I'm going to mix it in with some Sap Green. I want a colour that is strong enough to stand out without numerous reapplications, because this is just going to be doing the outline of it. Okay, that's quite a nice colour. Right, should we have a go then? So with this size 2/10 brush, I can just use the bristles to sort of smoothly do a nice thin outline. And not have to be sort of going back into my palette all the time for more, because I think that's the only thing, when you have a really tiny brush, you've only got a few bristles on that brush that can hold the paint in the first place. So you do have to consider that when you are deciding what brush you want, because what I would value more with something like this is to be able to be working for a longer period of time without having to put my brush back into the palette. Okay, that's a good start. Now our M shape. It was a bit weird, wasn't it? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this one. I think this is okay. And I think this one's just going to come a little bit higher, like that. There we go. See, working it out on the job. I like to live dangerously. And I'm doing a thin line, but not so paper thin that I can't sort of actually use a bit of brush stroke energy and really sort of move my brush quite nice and fast. Coming around over the top, so do that with there. And so this M is really quite concealed down this side, and it's very important when you do your pencil at the beginning that it is light and faint, so that when we finish and we come to rub everything out, that we can actually rub things out. So painting light, drawing with pencil light. And this is looking good. Having a line that's not too crazily thin is also helpful. Say if you felt like you painted a flower that sort of slightly blobbed up over the edge and you wanted to just sort of cover over a few errors. That's another good reason for it, and it also just helps the lettering stand out. So just be careful when you come to a plant that has overlapped over the front. Just seek out your pencil guidelines. Oh, I'm rather pleased with this. I think this looks kind of fun. I was trying to think of a word that was sort of summery, because we have got a summer wildflower meadow going on here, but wasn't so long that this video would turn into a sort of 2-hour epic. So just make sure you keep your paint nice and concentrated, or at least at a consistency that was the same as it was when you started. And it's so important that your plants and flowers that you painted are bone dry by the time you come to do this bit here. Otherwise, well, for a start you need your hand to be able to access all sorts of angles, but also, yeah, so you don't want to be smudging the paint, but also when you sort of overlap it like there, you don't want any kind of bleed or blend. And if you can do nice long sweeps like that, well, that is fantastic. But don't worry if you can't. We're working with a composer at the moment who is creating some really beautiful music to accompany these painting videos, so soon we will have a bit of music, which will mean you'll be able to sort of sit and watch these and just kind of relax and watch them, rather than sort of listening to me trying not to breathe too heavily. Because I do want these videos to be a nice sort of relaxing thing as well as a learning tool. Because I know watercolour is bringing people a lot of comfort at the moment, because it's a nice mindful activity that you can just sort of forget about the world for a bit. Just need a bit more water on that one. And finally, the bee. Well, that's very satisfying to get that outline done with the big rose hip behind it. Just starting to run out of moisture. There we go. I mustn't forget that a bee comes in the middle. There it is. It's amazing when you start painting lettering that you sort of forget that it is actually letters that you have sort of drawn and written your entire life. So I think this could be a really cool idea for a card or a piece of art that could be a nice gift for someone. Maybe like a nice wedding present where you use the wedding flowers of the couple. Maybe you could write their names or the date. That would be kind of fun. Oh, that would be kind of fun. There's a product idea. Just come to me. Don't worry. That can be our secret. We can both benefit from that one. But yeah, I think this could be a really lovely personal gift or something, yeah, just to sort of have for yourself. Paint something that means something to you. A word and some flowers. Well, that is fun. Now the last thing I'm going to do is add in just a few last little bits of detail that would be needed on the flowers. So the little filaments coming out of the trumpets of the honeysuckle. Because they don't really infringe on whether it's in front or behind of a letter. And again, so all of these little flowers can be found on my other tutorials that are available. There we go. Now all I need to do now is rub out the pencil and we've got a lovely bit of word art. So having rubbed it out with my trusty putty rubber, we can see that the pencil's gone, leaving the lovely flowers, and we've got our lettering nice and clear on the page. So there you go. So once you've had a go at doing floral word art, it's such a cool way of being able to paint a lovely greetings card, a nice bookmark. There's all sorts of uses for it. So I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, give me a like and a comment below to let me know the kind of things you'd like to see me doing on this channel. And to never miss a future one, you can subscribe. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.